Just want to say hello and welcome to our workshop this evening. Thank you for joining us. And if you've been to a few workshops, you will know Claire from Cult Pens, but I'm Sarah and I'm looking after this workshop this evening with Anna from Cult Pens and Carly from Daler-Rowney. All the three of us will be answering any questions you may have in the chat. And then obviously our workshop this evening is run by the lovely Jenny Muncaster, and she's going to be taking the workshop this evening. The workshop this evening is an introduction to the use of acrylic Daler-Rowney System3 paints, which we currently have 10% off if you're interested. If you would like to try and follow along with Jenny, you can, but really it's just a chance to sit back, relax and watch. We'll be handing over to Jenny in just a little moment's time, but to find out more, we will be handing over to find out more, but as usual, a little bit of housekeeping. We anticipate this session will last up to an hour, so please get comfy. The session is being recorded and we'll make the recording available later this week on our YouTube channel. So if you miss anything, you'll have a chance to take another look. All cameras and sound are switched off for the duration of the session, but if you have any questions, and we love questions, so please do ask away. You can use the chat function or the Q&A. Anna and I and Carly will do our best to answer your questions, and where possible, we'll gently interrupt Jenny as we go along. So if you're ready, Jenny, it's time to hand over to you to start the session. If you'd like to begin by sharing a little bit about yourself, for anyone that didn't attend the last session we did, and why you love the Daler-Rowney System3 paints.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. Hi, hello, everybody. I'm Jenny Muncaster, and I'm Zooming from the Colour Factory Studios, which is my lovely, oh God, I love this place. So it's my studio down in Winchester in Hampshire. And I was explaining actually a couple of weeks ago when I was doing another Zoom with you guys, but I've been here for, oh my goodness, 25 years or so. Wow, that makes me feel so old. But there's 7 artists here and we all work together sharing our professional practice. So we're a mixture of jewelers, painters, illustrators, designers. We've got a nature and art enthusiast as well. Amazing, a whole mixture of all sorts of creative professions going on here, and we absolutely love it. So we teach as well. And I'm really lucky to do lots of fantastic work with Daler-Rowney. Absolutely love these guys. I've been working with them for a few years now, and I am literally bowled over by their products. And one of my favourites, and I use this in my work as a professional artist, is the System3 Acrylic Paints. So I'm an acrylic artist primarily. I kind of call myself a mixed media artist because sometimes I just can't stick to one thing. I kind of layer up and add all sorts of different mediums with the acrylics, and layer up with all sorts of different other art products as well from the Daler-Rowney brand. But I'm absolutely in love with System3. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about the acrylic paints and why I've chosen this selection as well. And then I'm going to take you through some really good, fun little techniques. And some of them you may have done before. I'm not sure. I'd be interested to know that actually. And I'm going to share some of my tips and tricks with acrylics as well. But I just love working with these paints. They're amazing. And I suppose System3, they're a great brand of acrylics. They're incredibly economical. So they have a lot of pigment in them. And this is one thing as artists or beginner artists that we're looking at with acrylics. We want to make sure that our paints have got lots of colour in them. And that's the relationship of binder and pigment in our paint. And these have got a stack load of pigment in them, which makes them fantastically versatile for using on all sorts of different surfaces. And even if we water them down, which I'm going to show you all of these things in a bit, we'll see how fantastic that colour is. It's the intensity of the colour, the pigment that we're looking at. And all artists, we all love colour, don't we? So that's our main sort of thing to look out for, is how good that colour is. So They're a really economical brand. So if you're just starting with acrylics, or even as a professional like me, you will notice how fantastic the pigment is in there. And it really is brilliant, and it goes a long way. So great for artists of all levels, and great for beginners. Really high performance color, very, very rich pigment, and really durable as well. And what's great about the acrylics is they'll go on all sorts of different surfaces, and they're great for indoors and outdoors. Would you believe it? My God, we'll be painting everything in sight after this. Okay, so I'm going to take my camera overhead now, and we'll have a look in a little bit more detail at these acrylics, because I also want to talk to you about, well, I want to show you something, and it's quite a funny way to start a workshop actually, but I'll just let you into a little bit of a funny story. Is when I was, well, people sort of say to me, when did you get into art? And I can honestly say, as a child, all I was doing is painting and drawing all the time. That's all I ever wanted to do. But I remember when I was about 6 or 7 years old, my dad taking me to a craft fair, I think it was, and there was a guy doing some really interesting effects with acrylics. And seeing this technique that I'm about to show you, I must say it's the one thing that I have never ever forgotten. And I think this is what got me into painting with acrylics. I love it, or got me into art actually. So I'm going to share that with you in just a minute. So I'm going to take my camera overhead, and we'll have another little look at the acrylics. What I'm going to do, I've got my System3 paper here. This is really fantastic for working on. I've got A3 sheets here. Look, I'm going to pop these down. My camera always goes a little bit funny when it sees white. It can't focus. So let's have a look at my selection of colours. So System3 acrylics. If I had to have a limited palette of colour, if I had to have only 3 colours, I'd probably go for the primary colours. I've got ultramarine, cad red and cad yellow there. But if I was allowed another 3, I would definitely have the phthalo turquoise, the magenta and some white. And that would be my sort of starter palette. I might add a few other colours in, but if I was only allowed 6 colours or 5 and a white, those would be my the tubes of paint that I would have, because you can do so much with them. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about what we can do with that limited selection of colours there. But beautiful, beautiful pigments, really versatile. You can use acrylics in all sorts of different ways. We'll talk about the drying times. People, I'm going to come back to you for a minute actually, so you're not just looking at my paint, but people, when we think about acrylics, often people who are a bit worried about using acrylics will say, aren't the drying times, they're really fast, I don't know what to do with them. But I promise you, they are what we call open, long enough to do all sorts of different techniques with, and we can add water to them to thin them down without reducing the colour. We can do, I'm going to show you a bit later on some amazing techniques, some fun techniques we can do with spattering water, using a hairdryer to dry layers and to create all sorts of different effects. And we'll learn about how the acrylics, we can use them to our best advantage. And if you go on my Instagram account or my website, you'll see lots and lots. Most of my work is painted in acrylics, and you'll see the variety of work that I can make painting with acrylics, from bottles of wine to food to landscapes to seascapes to flowers. Oh my goodness, endless. So much inspiration there. Okay, so I want to show you this technique that when I was about 7 years old, I saw this and I think you're going to like it. So I'm going to take, I've got a cup here. I'd normally put my paint in a little glass pot, but I'm just using this so you can see the paint go in. Now I've got a big pot of acrylic. I'm going to use the turquoise. So let's just put some in my pot like that. And what I've got here is a piece of string. I'm going to put my piece, it's like a magic show, isn't it? I'm going to put my piece of string in my pot there, just leaving a little bit dangling. Don't let go of the end. And I'll get my brush. Let's get a brush. And I'm just going to make sure that all of my paint is covering the string. So give it a good dab down. Right, I'm going to go overhead now. Let's take this so you can see it There we go, on the page. Look, so I'm going to cover my string with the paint. So give it a good old dab down like that. This is a really lovely technique that anybody can do. Right, now I've got here, this is a bit odd, I've got a big old book here. This is a vintage, what is it? Guinness Book of Records. So any big heavy book is really good for this. Let's open it in the middle like this, and I'm going to take a piece of paper now. So this is some of that System3 acrylic paper. My camera goes a bit funny, and I'm just going to lay the paper in the middle of the book. Let's take that thing out the bottom like that. I've got my book, I've got my paper folded in half like that, set in the middle of the book. Right, let's finish off what I was doing with this painty string. I'm getting in a mess here. Right, let's make sure that the paint is covering the string, and I'm going to pull my string out. Okay, there we go. Just put that to one side and just pinch my string. And on one side of the paper, I'm just going to lay my string out in a wiggle. So I'm going to wiggle it back and forth like a snake, like that, all the way down, and just leaving a little end bit to hold on to. I've got in a mess already. Look at me, I'm terrible. Okay, so we've got our string laid out in a wiggle. I'm going to close the paper very gently. I'm going to close the book. And let's pop that in the middle. I'm going to hold down, put a little bit of pressure on the book. Can you see I've left my string dangling out the end? It's very important. Don't let go of that string. Press down on the book. Do you know what? In the day, we'd have used the Encyclopedia Britannica, wouldn't we? Did you have a set of them? Always had, you know, wish I'd kept hold of them because I could have used them for this. Okay, going to pull the string out now and hold down on the book. Let's pull that painty string out all the way. Can you see it coming out of the book? Oh my goodness, this is quite hard. Get the end, pull it out, and it's coming out. Let's just get the end, and it's nearly free. There we go. There's the end of the string. So the painty string is now out of the book. And then let's see what we've got. I've got very painty hands as well. So I'd use an old book. Where's my paper? Let's look for the paper now. I love this. Okay, let's see what we've got. Make sure you can see and open the page. Are you ready for this? I love this. This is quite amazing. Wow, that is what I call a wow moment. I absolutely love it. The print that the painty string has left in the page. Now I'd be really interested to see if anybody else has done this or seen it. I thought that everybody knew about this, and I'm surprised that a few people haven't seen this, but to remind you, it is great fun to do. You can get the kids involved with this. The paint pigment, look at that, it's absolutely beautiful. And it's a little bit like the fluid art that we do. And actually, funny enough, you can use the System3 paints. You can mix them with various mediums as well. So if you're into fluid art pouring, you can mix the System3 paints with a fluid pouring medium to create some similar great effects. But look at that. Look at how simple that is with a bit of string.
Looks amazing, Jenny.
It's so clever. And
yeah, it's so simple, but yeah, so effective. I feel like I can give that a go myself.
Definitely give it a go. Everyone's got to do that. If you're 7 or 107, you can definitely do that, can't you? And look at this one. Can you see? I won't do this now because I've got so many things I want to show you, but this is string that has been dipped with yellow and magenta, so in stripes. So if you put your paint on in stripes and then lay down and pull through, you get this amazing, almost like a calla lily effect in 2 colours. That is like rhubarb and custard to me. Absolutely love it. So why not have a go with that? It's absolutely brilliant. And, you know, I think it doesn't matter what age you are. I was 7 when I saw that, and it is completely stuck with me. I love it. And it's a great way to introduce acrylics to people. Right, I'm going to talk a little. I've got a funny thing here now I want to show you. I'm going to get I've got a plate here. I'm going to get my colours. So I was going to talk about why I'd chosen this. Look at my hands, aren't I awful? I might give those a little wipe. I was going to talk about this colour palette here. So yes, I've got the 3 primary colours, red, blue and yellow. And I've also added in a magenta and turquoise because they're really quite difficult colours to mix. You know, they're kind of pure pigments. So I like to have a little bit of a pop of colour in my work, and I would definitely add those 2 in as well. And then we've got the white for a tint. And what I want to show you now is, I'm not saying that we'll do this all together right now, but I want to take you through this little exercise. And it's something that I do with my students when they first start painting acrylics. And I kind of thought, oh, they're going to be a bit bored doing this, but actually it's completely, utterly mesmerizing. So let's put some of these colors on my plate. So there's the white, I've got the magenta. Let's put these on, and I'm just going to whiz through really, really quickly. I've got the ultramarine, the cad red, I've got the yellow going down now, and I've got the turquoise as well. So that's my little favorite family of colors on my plate. I'm going to take a square brush, and then what I've got here, I'll talk you through this, is that I've done a grid. It looks like we're not going to do, it's like maths or something. So what I've got here is I've got 7 little blocks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is my little sort of spare one in the corner. So we've got blue, red, yellow, turquoise, pink and white. And then going down the side, we leave one, and then we've got blue, red, yellow, turquoise, pink and yellow. Sorry, pink and white. And what I'm going to do first of all is, you can see, look, here's one I did earlier. You can see how I've now started to fill in. I've taken blue from my palette and painted it in. I've taken red and painted it in yellow, all the way along. And similarly going down as well, like this. So I'm going to start painting in my grid. And what I want to do is I want to try and understand how we can mix colour and how we can build up a whole variety of tones using just these 5 colours in white. And you'll be absolutely amazed what you can achieve. So I start going, is it along the corridor and up the stairs? Something like that, I remember. So we'll do blue, where blue meets blue. Obviously, we won't bother with the blue where it meets the blue in this square here, but we're going to go along blue meets red. So a little tip here, I am going to mix, let's make sure that I'm in the camera here. So I'm going to take a little bit of my lighter colour, which is the red, and a little bit of blue. So go in with just a small amount of the darker colour first of all, and it really is up to you, the proportions that you use. I want you to experiment with this. So you can already see I'm getting a different tone. It's quite difficult in the light here, isn't it? So, okay, so I've mixed red and blue. So let's put that in the square. So that will go in here. And we're going along. I'm going to wash my brush in between. And we're going to go along. And it's almost quite mindful doing this. I'm going to take a little bit of my yellow. So I'm going with the lighter colour first. And then I'm going to add a little blue to it. And I'll see what I get. Mix them on my plate. And pop it in the square. And you'll be absolutely amazed the range of colours that you get. Let's do a couple more, because we're not going to spend all evening doing this, but I do think it is worth having a go with this. On a rainy day, get the paints on and have a go with this. So now we've got ultramarine blue and turquoise. So I'm going to go in with the turquoise, add a little bit of blue. I'm not using 50-50 proportions, but I'm just sort of, it's almost suck it and see what you get. Because we'll be repeating the sequence again. So you'll have 2 lots of blue and turquoise mix. So maybe the next time you come across the turquoise and the blue, you can add a little bit more turquoise than blue, or vice versa. Let's do one more. So this time we're going across, along, and we're meeting up with the pink. So let's take a little bit of pink.
This is quite good to do with the children over Easter, Jenny.
Yeah, do you know, I think even adults, you know, I've done this with my, yeah, it's a really good little reminder of how we can mix colour. And
trying to guess what the colour's gonna come out like before you actually mix it. And
Yeah,
then
absolutely.
seeing if you've guessed it right, you can do it on your own or.
Even now, look, I'm putting a tint. I'm using the white to tint now. So already we've got a whole row of colours that are different from our out of the tube colours.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see the range of colours that you can get from just that small selection.
Yeah, so then we'll go on. So obviously I'm not going to, yeah, from a small selection, let's go on. These are magically appearing like Blue Peter, because I just want to show you how it develops. So we're carrying on. So let's do a little bit more. Let's do yellow and red here. So let's take the lighter colour first, because obviously it's a little tip. It's much easier to put the dark into light than the other way. You can add a little bit more. So, okay, there we go. So I'm going to put a little bit more yellow in here now. Where our colours meet, so I've got yellow and red. I've also done another red and yellow here. So you can see if I change the proportions of how much yellow and red I put each time, you can see I've got a different version of my yellow and red here and a slightly darker yellow and red here. We'll obviously put a little bit more red in. It's amazing what you can get. Can you see that? So you just keep going and filling in. It's actually really, really quite restful thing to do. It's always my little sort of yoga almost. I'm not very good at doing yoga. I was thinking about shopping lists, but when I'm doing this, I don't think about anything else other than colour and mixing colour and getting absorbed into it. So we keep going with that. And finally, here's one that I finished. And you can see the colour palette, just gorgeous. And in fact, I was saying to Sarah, wasn't I, my stepdaughter actually has done a lot of work with Damien Hirst. And believe it or not, her interview to work with him was mixing colour. And it's quite a skillful thing. As an artist, we still need to understand how we can mix a colour that we see. So if we're trying to replicate a colour that we've done in a painting, we've got to try and look at it and analyse what colours have gone into it to make that colour. And this is a really simple version of having a go with that system of mixing. So well worth a try out with that, especially with those limited palette of colours and white.
Yeah, it looks really interesting, and I feel like you could extend that if you have got any more colours to add to this. Obviously you could make this chart as long as you need it.
Absolutely. Why not add a raw umber? That's a lovely colour as well to include in a palette. A raw umber, maybe an orange. Yeah. So
and this is
something
you can keep and put on your wall where you do your painting, so you can always refer back to it.
Well, do you know what, Carly? Well, I've done this in class with my students. Hang on, I'm going to come back to you quickly. And they haven't done it in big black pen like this. I kind of did this for looking at the camera today, but they've just done it very lightly in pencil and then rubbed out, and they're framing them because they're just really lovely pieces of artwork. Just these little lovely blocks of colour. Really nice. Yeah, very, very satisfying to do as well.
It's a good way of you testing out using the paint to start with, what the texture's like on your brush, things like that. A bit of a practice before you go into something.
Absolutely. I think it builds a bit of confidence, doesn't it, with those with the colour. Absolutely, you're right. Okay, right, I'm going to take you, because we've got a few more things to do. I'm going to take you on another little journey looking at, I want to show you how versatile the System3 acrylics are. And I've got another little sort of practice sheet here, really, really good fun to do. We're going to whiz through this. I can always send a copy of this to you as well, you guys at Cult Pens, and you can send it on to people who are interested. But this is a really, really fab little way to experiment with the paints. And we're going to look at the amazing properties of System3 paint. So I'll take you overhead again. I'm going to get my colours, and then we've got other things to do as well. So don't go away. Okay, I'm going to go back to my. So this is what we're going to be doing. I'm going to take a fresh piece of paper. Let's put that over the top. I've got my colours here. So I'm going to take my, it's amazing what you can do with just a little square brush like this. So let's get our colours. Can you see my palette? I'll whiz it round. Okay, so the first thing that I want to do is to show you the pigment. So let's go in with some of this blue. I'm not adding any water to my paints here. They are straight out of the tube. Look at that pigment, it's amazing. And one of the things that I do to test out the intensity and the colour is while it's still wet, I take the end of the brush through and I can see how it stains the paper. You can see the mark still underneath and it stains the paper through. This is a lovely way to look at pigment and just play with the brush. And then while I've got a little bit of water, a little bit of, I'm just going to get while I've got a little bit of blue still on my brush, I'm just going to put a little bit of water on that. I just want to try and get this in the camera and just give it a little wash through like this. And you can see how just with a little bit of water, I've turned that lovely buttery, thick acrylic paint with a lovely consistency into watercolor. So you're still getting amazing color there, but we're using it like a watercolor. Really fantastic. Love that. Just using it almost like what I would call a glaze. So we've got straight out of the tube and then we've got mixed with a little bit of water as well. Let's try the magenta. Let's do the same thing as well. So across my paper like this, take the end of the brush through. Yeah, absolutely love the way it's got enough resin in with the pigment to make it really smooth and buttery and to keep it what we call open, which stops it drying too quickly, which means that we can manipulate the paint and do all sorts of different things with it. So that's a really nice way to just start looking at the colour. Oh, actually, while I've got some of that pink, let's just pop a little square down here because I'd want to show you something else. Can you see that okay? And now,
yeah, it looks great.
what I'm going to do, I've just got a little bit of water on my brush from where I put the, let's get that, this was the magenta there. I've got a little bit of water from the paint that was left on my brush. Let's go over our watercolory area. And look at that, we can blend a watercolory effect. And I've got my pink there. So we can see the brush strokes of the watercolor effect using the acrylics, but I'm also putting a pink layer over the top from what was left on my brush. And we can see the blue underneath, almost like sort of stained glass, what I call a glaze. So we're thinking of using our paint nice and thick straight out of the tube here, and then we're looking at using it with water here, and you get some lovely washy effects, some really beautiful subtle glazes of colour.
It definitely shows how versatile I think that paint is.
I'm just going to try this little square here. I've got my hair dry here. Let me just give this a quick glass. I just want to show you something else that we can do that is very unique to acrylic paints. Okay, so what differentiates acrylic paint from other paints? Well, it's the opacity, how opaque we can get that colour, the pigment. So I've got, should be dry really. I'm going to give it another quick blast. I've got a big bit of acrylic on there. So we're looking at its covering power, how opaque we can make our colour. We want to try and cover up that pink paint. So let's go in with some white. You'd think white would be the worst colour to try and cover up a darker colour, but let's give it a go. So let's take some white. There's the white on my plate. I'm going to go on top, completely covered up. So you can see how the opacity of acrylic paint, so versatile again, we can cover up the layer underneath. And just to prove that, I'm going to take the end of my brush and give it give it a little movement through so you can see the pink underneath, so scratching through. So that really goes to show that there's a lot of pigment in there in that paint. Acrylic is great because it can cover up a darker color underneath. Right, let's do a couple more things. Let's think about how we can mix color now. So I'm going to take some yellow on my palette. Can you see I'm trying to get this in the right position? Let's take some yellow. So let's do a little bit of yellow here. And while it's still wet, let's get some red. And I'm going to go in from underneath here. And while it's still wet, let's try and blend that through the yellow. So can you see how I'm getting a nice blend through? So very, very quickly, I can blend two colours through. That's really lovely while it's wet. Let's try that again with another colour. I'm not washing my brush out very well. Naughty me. Right, okay, let's give it a good old wash in my water there. And then let's try this lovely turquoise, my favourite colour. Let's go up from the bottom like this. And then let's blend it through. Let's get a nice mix, a blend through while it, what are we going to get? Ding, 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 ding. We've got a nice green. So that lovely turquoise colour will give us a beautiful, vibrant green. Those two colours together and mix it up. So some lovely quick colour mixing there. We're using it wet on wet. So we're not letting the colours dry. We're just mixing them and blending them together. Okay, let's have a look at this square brush now. My favourite brush. Oh, let me just show you my favourite brushes. The fan brush, love that brush. The System3 sword brush, absolutely amazing for achieving some beautiful lines. I've got my flat brush, comes in lots of different sizes. I love these brushes. And finally, just a lovely round brush, again, in lots of different sizes. Oh, I haven't got my rigger brush. That's a long, thin one. So we get some lovely brushes for acrylic. System3, really bouncy, really, really lovely to do lots of different work with. But I'm going to put those aside because I just want to show you what we can do with a couple of things. Let's take some of my pink through. This is another way, if we want to start with our acrylics and we're not quite sure where to start, I would definitely get a blank piece of paper and do this kind of thing on it. Just play around with the different marks that we can make. So with my flat brush, I'm making a lovely, this is a 1/2 inch, lovely brush mark across. Let's take a bit more paint. I can use the very, very tip of the brush here, the very, very tip, and I'm using my little finger as a rest, and I can just scrape it along like this, and look, I can get a nice line going across, just using the very tip of the brush, holding the brush upright. Let's do that again, using my finger as a rest, otherwise I'll be moving around everywhere. It's like giving me some control, and then across like this. So you could have a go at using brushes in all sorts of different ways. What about printing with the edge of the brush as well? Just dabbing and printing with that flat end of the brush. We could do some cross hatching, like almost printing. This is what I get my students to do with acrylics, just exploring all the different ways that they can make marks on paper. And these are all the kind of techniques that acrylic artists will use in their artwork. So have a play around. There's no right or there's no wrong. I'm sure that, you know, you'll come up with lots of different ways of using these that I haven't got here. Okay, I'm slightly running out of paint on my brush now. So what I'm going to do now is what we call a dry brush technique. Hardly any paint on the brush. In fact, we could wipe a little bit off. And I just want you to just very gently scrub your brush on your paper. A dry brush technique gives you a really nice effect. And this is a technique that artists use to do an effect called scumbling, which I'll show you in a minute. I've still got a little bit of paint on the end of my brush. So let's put some water on and let's just use it to do a little wash there. Nice, little wash of colour. If I take it up through the scumble, look, I can see the texture of the scumble. So it's almost like a glaze of colour over the dry brush technique. I love that. And, oh, I know, look, I've got a palette knife here. Let's get a bit more pink. It's good fun to try all sorts of different mark making. Right, palette knife. Got my palette knife. Dip a little bit in the paint. Again, I haven't added any water to this. And let's have a look at the consistency. So, oh, we can get lots of different textures with our palette knife. Good fun to do. We can scrape through like this. Oh, look, I'm even putting it over that glaze at the top, the wash, and scraping through again. Ooh, that's quite nice. I'm almost making a bit of a landscape or something. I don't know what's going on there. Just playing around with texture, using the palette knife to create all sorts of different effects. So that's really, really good fun to do. Let's hold that up so you can see. So nice to use a palette knife, scraping through, pressing, making marks. It makes a lovely printed effect, scrape through, delish. I'll show you that, a little bit more about that in a minute. And finally, I can't do anything without having a few different sponges around. So this is a little natural sponge that Daler-Rowney do. And let's just try dipping in my plate here, a little bit of that magenta again. Let's make the most of the texture of that little natural sponge. And I've got a little bit of spare white paper, a little bit sponging on the end. That's a really lovely, oh, let's go up here. Oh, I've got the yellow underneath now. That's rather nice. Experimenting with sponging as well. So different ways to use those paints already. For somebody, you know, who's a little bit apprehensive about having a go with acrylics, or I can't paint, I can't draw, I haven't painted since school, or wants to get into acrylics, you know, doing some little exercises like this is really lovely, great fun, and freeing up. Right, I'm gonna, oh, I should put that on the wall, shouldn't I? I'm gonna take a couple of those techniques a little bit further, because what I want to show you, I was talking about this little sponge here. I love these. I've got all sorts of different sponges. I've got natural sponges. I've got kitchen sponges. Great for creating different effects. But look, this is, I don't know if my camera can pick this up, but can you see, just using a couple of colours from my plate, I've got the turquoise, the ultramarine, a bit of white. I've actually created a sky effect just by using my sponge to do a little bit of sponging in those colours. So that's worth a try. I talked about scumbling. So that was where we used a dry brush. And I was just doing a little bit of scumbling before we started this evening on this yellow colour here. So this is a ground of yellow acrylic. Let's mix up a little bit of blue and red to make this sort of rich kind of orangey brown colour. And then I've got that on my plate there. Let's just scrape a little bit off on my tissue and continue. Oh, it was a bit darker. Look at me mixing my colours. So this is what we call scumbling, and it's basically almost scrubbing the surface of your paper with a dry brush to create this scumbly effect. And it gives you quite an interesting texture, especially if you've got a darker colour over a lighter colour or vice versa. So let's just, I'm almost getting rid of the paint that's on my brush and scumbling it, moving it one way, moving it the other way, this way, that way, backwards and forwards. So very quickly, that just giving you the effect of a scumble there. And then finally, I've got some dark blue acrylic paint on here. And I just wanted to go back with my palette knife, and let's take a little bit of white that I've got on my plate. I'm just keeping an eye on the time because I've got something else I want to show you, which is good fun. A little bit of white on my palette knife, and then let's have a look at how that palette knife works on a darker ground. This is nice, very satisfying to do. It could be clouds, it could be sea, it could be different sort of effects. Look at that, that's really nice, almost like a sort of aged effect. Ding, 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 using my palette knife like that. So a nice bit of contrast, just scraping. Ooh, cloud. I'm almost thinking that is like a sky. And I've got a little bit of tape on here. So let's pull the tape away and see what we've got. Ooh, pull the tape away. 3 very different effects on my paper. Really, really good fun to do. So that's the white on top of a dark to create almost like, if I put it that way, are we thinking clouds? Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Love this effect here. This is almost like fiery landscape. This is the scumble technique, just a dry brush, dark over light, or vice versa. Why not try it the other way? And then a little bit of the sponging with our natural sponge to create a sky effect. So taking some of the techniques on our sheet here that we were doing, well worth having a go, and then just saying to you, look guys, just push it a little bit further, and we've got the beginnings of some paintings going on here, some techniques and some paintings. Okay, I love that. So I definitely say have a go at that. Right, finally, I've got one more thing to show. I'm keeping an eye on the time now. I'll just come back to you while I'm getting my stuff ready, because I've got one of my favorite techniques that I want to show you now, and it's playing around with the drying times of acrylic paint, which is one of the things that I absolutely love about acrylic paints. Let's get my piece of board. A piece of paper. This is some of the System3 paper, and I've just put it on a bit of cardboard to keep it sturdy so I can hold it up, and I've just got a little bit of masking tape going around. So that's what I'm going to be working on. Well, in fact, just very quickly, I was talking to you about how versatile acrylics are, and we're going to be looking at the drying times and how we can play around with them. But where acrylic paint sits, so the System3 acrylic, which has this lovely, it sort of dries fairly quickly, but it stays open enough for us to do lots of different techniques with. We've also got Daler-Rowney do a heavy body acrylic, this one here, which is nice and thick. And I think I might have used that in some techniques with you previously. I might have talked about the heavy body acrylic, really great for impasto work with palette knife, nice and thick. It's almost like icing. Love that stuff. And there's also on the other end of the scale, have to hold it that way. I need another hand to hold the heavy body. We've got fluid acrylic. So again, another System3 acrylic product, but this is beautiful, really, really fluid. It comes in tubes as well, and it gives us a different consistency for doing all sorts of different work. But very highly pigmented as well. Great pigments in those paints. Right, I just wanted to show you those other 2 things quickly. Right, okay. Let's pop that in there. Let's get going with this technique. I love this. Right, I'm going to go back overhead. I've got, let me just get some of my colours. Let's make sure I've got all my colours. Yeah, no, do you know what? We'll go for it. Okay. I'm going to take you back overhead. There we go. So I've got my paper taped down. I've just got some sponges here as well. I've got a couple of sponges. And right, let's get some clean water in a little pot here. I'm just going to get some colour down on my paper. So I'm going to go in with some yellow, a little bit on each side, a little blob on each side. I'm not going to paint my paper. I'm not going to get a paintbrush. I'm going to use a sponge. So let's just look how quick this is. I'm just going to get this colour down. I could do this so quickly. Bing, bing, bing. Nice, even layer. That is like magic. Over the top of my paper. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So I just want to create a thin, even layer of acrylic paint on my paper. How quick was that? Quicker than painting with a brush. Just about a teaspoon on a bit of sponge, nice and flat. There we go. We've covered our paper. The next thing I want to do is I've got a hairdryer here for speed, but we want to make sure this is dry before we put another layer on. So I'm going to quickly speed up with my hairdryer and feel it and make sure that it's completely dry. Right, just give it a good old dry. Yeah, I think that's done. So feel it, make sure that's lovely and dry there. And I'm going to play around with the drying times now of this paint. So acrylic paint, once it's dry, because it's got the binder in it, it's almost water resistant, which is why it's a really good paint for painting indoors and outdoors. It's really hard wearing. If I get some on my apron, it will come off while it's wet, but when it's dry, it's not going anywhere. Okay, so that's nice and dry. Okay, I've got some water in a little spritzer here. I've also got a little bit of water in a bucket next to me. That's just sitting next to me there. I've got some more sponges. So I'm going to work on this side first. And I'm going to put a layer of paint down. So what colour shall I go for? Let's go for a little bit of red. Okay, so the next layer of paint that I put on this side, I don't want it to dry quickly before I do my technique. So I'm going to work really fast. I'm going to do one even layer of red. I'm going to have my water ready. Let's have it there so you can see. My water's ready to sprinkle on top. Ready, off we go. Deep breath, cover the paper, one side, one even layer, not thick, just an even layer. Don't let that paint dry. So I've got to work quickly and then in with the water. And then I'm going to spatter, flick, flick, flick on top. I'll try and show you what this looks like. And if I get the light right, you'll be able to see. So I'm dripping water, flicking water out of the pot, not everywhere, but just so there's lots of spots and drops. So I've got areas of paint that hasn't got water on and areas that has. If I get this in the right light, you might be able to see. Can you? Oh, it's just getting that light right. Can we see just about there?
Yeah, I can see, Jenny.
Yeah, just sort of there. If I get
Yeah.
that light, yeah. Okay, so I can breathe. I can leave that for a minute. Let's work on this side now. Let's put a different color on. I'm going to go in with the, I love that turquoisey color. So let's go in with that. Oh, no. Do you know what? I think I want to do the pink. The pink on this side. Let's take that pink, a little bit more of that pink. I'm looking at the time, we're 10 minutes. A little bit of that magenta. Okay, let's get that on the other side and we'll do the same thing. So one even layer, a little bit more. So we're covering up the yellow.
Love how quickly you can cover a page with a sponge, Jenny.
Yeah, that is because highly pigmented paint, lots of colour in it. Cheaper paints won't do this as well. So it's a really good, it shows how much pigment is in that paint. Because
you didn't put,
yes, sorry.
I was going to say, it didn't look like you put very much paint on the sponge either, and it gave amazing coverage.
It is brilliant, isn't it? Look, I'm going to hold this up again. Let's see if we can see the water on here. If I get it in the light. There we go, look. So I've got water sitting on top. So what
it
I want
feels wrong to throw water on your art, doesn't it? But I can't wait to see the effect.
This is going to be a fun effect that anyone can do. Okay, so look, I just put a little bit more on that actually. A little bit more. Well, wherever you put the water, the pattern is going to show when I reveal the layer. Okay, so water to one side. Now, we've got to keep an eye on this. If I didn't have a hairdryer, it would be like watching paint dry, because what we want to do is to dry where the paint is sitting. So where the, it's where the opaque colour, the dark, the, what am I called, the word, the non-shiny, I've lost that word. The
matte.
Oh, it's gone from me. The matte. Thank you very much. What's that word? So yeah, the matte areas is where the paint's drying, and the shiny is where the water's sitting on top. We want to dry the paint layer. I'm just going to give it a little blast with my hair dryer. I'm going to keep the water wet. I'll hold it up. I reckon about 10 seconds. So yeah, matte and shiny. We can see it now, can't we? I think the paint is dry, but the water's still wet. Okay, so I'm going to take a clean sponge and I'm now going to wipe my water away. We ready? Let's make sure, look at this. Ooh, got this amazing technique.
Took me by surprise. I don't know what I was expecting, but that looks amazing.
So that's the pattern that the water has made, and it's stopped the paint from drying, and we've dried what was around the water droplets, and then we're wiping the water droplets away to reveal the colour underneath. And let's try that one as well. Yummy. And then so you can see how the paint's coming off on the sponge. Now, because I've used a damp sponge, I'm going to do one more layer. I think we've got time for another colour, haven't we?
Yeah.
We'll do another colour on top. We've got to dry what's there, because if it wasn't properly dry, shall I just show you? I'll just show you a little bit here. If it's not properly dry, I'll show you what happens. We can almost rub it away. So we want to dry, we want to almost fix what's there. We don't want it to go anywhere. Let's give it a quick blast. Check with my hands, just make sure that really is nice and dry. It takes 10 seconds or so, and then we've got to decide what colours and what we're going to do next. So what colours have we got now? Right, I'm going to do one side with the turquoise, and let's just get a little bit more of that blue on there. So again, not too much on my sponge. Let's go over this one, covering it up. And then this time, what should we do on top? We'll do a little bit of the flicking still, but I've got some cups here. Let's see, and I'm going to, I need to do this before it dries. I've got my water, dip it in the water, and I'm going to make some prints with the edge of my cup. And again, you could do this with anything. If I stuck my hand in the water and pressed my hand on the wet paint, I'd make a handprint. I have done that. I won't do this now, but I have done that before, and it's quite effective. So again, the secret is to leave some areas without water and some areas that have water. So there's clear definition. Let's do slightly different, a smaller cup as well. Ooh, I think I put a bit too much on then. Oh, it carries away. A little bit more flicky. Let's just dab a little bit of that water off. Okay, so I wonder if you can see, again, can you just see where it's lighter, which is where my water's sitting, and it's kind of sucking up the paint, drinking it up while it's wet. Right, what should we do on here? Different color, different color. What are we gonna do? Let's do blue. Let's do blue. Okay, I've got my ultramarine. We could do a couple of different colors on here. A little bit of blue. So I've got to do this quickly before it dries. Oh my goodness, more paint, more paint. Whoop. A little bit on there. Not too much. What would happen if we did that color and then we put a little bit of blue on as well? You could do anything on there, and a bit of flicky. Let's do the cup thing. I just love that cup thing. Circles. We could print with anything, with water. Okay, let's do the cup thing. So put my hand in. Shall I try this? Press down with my hand. Decided to get messy. I don't know whether that's going to work, but let's just see what happens. Bing, bing, bing. A little bit flicky. There we go. Right. Now we need to do a little bit of drying. So to speed up the effect, I'll take my hairdryer overhead as well. I've got quite a bit of water. I'm just going to drink some of that, just block some of that water. And out of interest, I definitely, well, I've used this technique quite a lot in my work, and it actually happened through making a mistake, which I'll tell you about in a minute. Give it a dry. We got any questions that need answering or try? I wonder if my handprint's going to come out.
I love the depth you can see, Jenny, of all the different colours all layered up.
Let's just give that a little bit more glass. Sorry, Collie, I missed that. I missed that question.
It wasn't a question. I'm just saying I love the depth of all the colours that you can see. You actually feel like you can see how it's layered and the patterns it's creating. It's mesmerising.
But it still feels a bit like a surprise because you can't, until you wipe it away, you can't really see.
Should we see what we've got? Okay, clean sponge. Nice. Oh, look at that. So the turquoise is coming off. That is gorgeous, isn't it? Let's see what, I don't know what I was doing with the other side. That was complete. So you could layer up as much as you want. I don't know about my hands coming
really
out.
effective.
Okay, so look, it's really robust as well. Once it's dry, it creates a really lovely layer on the paper, almost leathery because of the binder in the acrylic. And it's almost, it's really kind of robust, it's really thick, it's just gives you the most gorgeous finish. So I'm just going to give it a quick dry. I'm going to come back to you and show you when I take the tape off. Let's just give it 2 minutes or 1 minute. Okay, let's take the tape off now. Because what I love is showing the white paper underneath where we started. Look at that. It's just amazing to see. We started with that white paper. Just doing this too quickly. Here we go. And this last bit. Here we go. Love it. So look, really robust. Got a little bit of a tear there.
Looks amazing. I always think when you put a border, when you tape round your work as well and gives it that nice neat edge, it completely transforms it in a way.
It's really lovely, isn't it? So you just can do all sorts of things with it. I'm going to come back to you now because I just wanted to explain. It's really funny how I came across some of these techniques, and it's really interesting as an artist. It was actually a mistake. So I was, because I'm an acrylic artist, I was painting with acrylics, and I took a phone call. I went to clean my brush and I dropped all the water on my brush across my acrylic painting. I was on the phone. I then went back and looked at the art and thought, oh no, I just dropped all of this water on, and I immediately grabbed a sponge to try and wipe the water off, and it revealed this incredible technique. And it's something that I use in my work now, and I absolutely love it. You know, different colors. And in fact, if you have a look on my Instagram, I'm not allowed to reveal the whole thing yet, but I can sort of tell you I'm painting a 6-foot hare for a trail around Winchester that starts in, I think it's June, mid-June. And I've used this technique on my 6-foot hare using System3 Acrylics, and it's going to be outside on a trail, and I think it's going to be up till the end of August. So there's going to be 30 hares all around Winchester and Southampton, and my hair is being painted with the amazing System3 Acrylics and using these techniques. So there you go, used by professionals. Love it. So I hope that's inspired you. I hope that's given you a really good insight into System3 Acrylics. Lots of different ways that you can use them. Great for starting off, but also for professional work as well. Incredibly versatile. incredible pigment. As you can see, you hardly need any, as Carly was saying. Put it on that sponge and you can do all sorts of things with it. I hope you've enjoyed
amazing. It looks great. I think it looks amazing. Definitely shows the versatility today about the different things you can do with those paints, and just those 6 paints as well. Just looks great. Really, really good.
It's quite addictive as well. This kind of, you know, it's really great fun to do. There's no right or wrong. You're going to, you know, people have a go with this. They're going to come up with some amazing things that I haven't thought of. So I'd love to see them. I'd love to see what you come up with.
Yeah.
Have a go with the colour choice this way.
Yeah.
As well.
Amazing. Right. Thank you so much, Jenny, for today. I really appreciate everything. And it was a really good workshop. Lots of people saying thank you in the chat and saying fascinating, lots of ideas, brilliant, really informative and inspiring. So you've definitely inspired a few in the chat today, which is great. Obviously, if you have helped or gone along with this session today and you have created anything, or if you're going to create anything in the next couple of days or so over the Easter break, maybe, be sure to tag us and use the hashtags. We have one called Cult Pens Creative, or we have System3 Acrylic Ink hashtag. You can also find Jenny on Instagram. Just type in Jenny's name. There you go, perfect.
I want you to see little snippets of that of the hair, because they're all done using lots of the techniques that we've done tonight. So have a look.
Just to wrap things up, to let you know, this session has been recorded, so if you miss anything, you can catch it on YouTube, and we will share it on the social channels later on, maybe early next week, depending on how quickly I can do it. So you can always go back, rewatch it as many times, pause it, whatever you need. Also, just to let you know, we're going to end the session now. We're going to hang on for a few minutes if you have any questions. But we'll turn our cameras off and say goodbye. Thank you so much again, Jenny, for helping out today and showing us all the things and the wonderful stuff you can do with those amazing paints. Really hope you all enjoyed this session. Yeah.
Thanks for having me. I loved it. Yeah. Get painting with acrylics.
Yeah, and we'll definitely see you again. This isn't the last one.
Excellent.
Amazing. Thank you, everyone. Bye.